Hello and welcome to the Debrief, hosted by British Rowing in association with Junior Rowing News. My name is Tom Morgan and you join us on Black Monday, the day immediately after Henley Royal Regatta and the first day in 5 for the rowing community to catch its breath. 26 events, hundreds of races, thousands of strokes and new victors crowned, and I'm delighted to be joined by Sarah Winckless, Henley Steward and head of the YouTube commentary team, alongside Martin Gough, rowing journalist, and Camilla Hadland, world rowing commentator and one of the leading voices on the Henley Royal Regatta live stream. Sarah, perhaps if I come to you first, it's take a breath time, definitely. It's been 5 very intense days at Henley Royal Regatta. Give me your immediate reflections on the event and perhaps a little indication and insight into the challenges that were faced putting this on this year.
Yeah, I saw the exec staff, Daniel Grist and Ed Warner this morning as I went back to the site. What did you do on Black Monday? You go back to Henley, of course. That's the only way to recover. And took the dog for a walk there. And we kind of looked at each other and said, I can't believe we did it. We can't believe we managed to put that event on in these times. I've sat in many committee meetings in the last year and a half since I joined the committee. My first meeting we cancelled last year's regatta. And it has been really challenging to plan this year's, and just delighted that we did it. The quality of the racing was fantastic. The finals, I got to commentate on some extraordinarily tight finals, umpire, some amazing athletes, and watch that. It was just a privilege.
And Camilla, maybe coming to you next, of course, you had a similar vantage point as one of the lead commentators on the YouTube stream. You told me several times during the week how delighted you were to be back. I assume that is probably the prevailing feeling now the regatta's over.
Yeah, looking back, it just felt so great to be back at the regatta, and for it to feel as normal as it did in the times that we have had was amazing, and I think made it even better that we had some new events, and it was just ultimately really exciting to watch and commentate on, and we had some great racing, and that always helps with the general feeling. Nice tight racing, nice full banks of spectators, and the sort of colour when you go down the bank to see all the people that have come down to watch. It really was special to be back this year.
And Martin, watching on remotely, you must have been fixed to the YouTube stream and then trying to juggle having a family on holiday. I think that's where you were. How is it from your perspective?
Yes, the Henley Stewards, had they announced a week earlier, I might not have booked my holiday at the time I did. But I can't blame them for that. But I think this is the first regatta I've missed since probably 1999. But yeah, glued to the stream, and obviously trying to work out in advance what the important ones were not to miss, and then realising that you've missed them and having to watch them on catch up, and then and running through the whole whole of yesterday on delay just to see so much great racing. And I mean, the highlight for me, just sort of watching from afar, was just seeing all these new women's eights events in particular, and great to see them all going so well and being so hard fought right down to the end.
Well, let's start with some results, and let's start from the top of the roster. Perhaps the Open men's events, the Grand and the Stewards. Of course, the Grand won by Oxford Brookes, who had a remarkable regatta. Sarah, I mean, it's amazing to see them winning the Grand. I don't know if it's their first time winning that event, but it just shows the strength and depth that they were able to win that event, and then also both competitive eights right through the regatta.
Yeah, really impressive squad, both in their men and their women's team. Of course, we'll be talking about them a lot. And yeah, for a club to win the Grand, a university to win the Grand, it is unusual. Let's not beat any bones around it. And to have an easily verdict is extremely unusual. They dominated that event, so they are an absolute world-class eight. We know that, and I'm sure many of us would have loved to see another world class eight hop off the back of Tokyo and give them a challenge down that course. But we didn't get to see that, but we did get to see some fantastic rowing from those athletes.
And then repeating the feat in the Stewards, Camilla, I mean, Brookes also won the ladies. It's almost like we need to dedicate a section of this debrief to Oxford Brookes, the amount of silverware they picked up yesterday.
Yeah, 5 events in total that they won across both the men's and the women's. And the stewards, like you say, I think that 4 of the guys from that 8 jumped into the 4 in the afternoon. So doubling up at the regatta, which, we talk about a university winning the Grand being unusual. Doubling up at the regatta is unusual, full stop. And they had a much closer fought race in the final against the Dutch second 4, effectively the 4 guys that didn't end up going to Tokyo, and that was a really competitive international crew that had hopped off the back of World Cup 2 in Lucerne, and they rode through and it was a really good race to watch, and that's what you want to see, isn't it? That, competitive, either top level university or club crews from the UK going up against that international interest from abroad, and that's exactly what we've got with the stewards.
And steering towards some of the sculling events, it's quite unusual, I think, for a good heavyweight crew to lose out to a good lightweight crew. And Martin, maybe if I come to you, in the double sculls and the stoner, we had the lightweight crews beating the heavyweight crews. Now, don't get me wrong, those lightweight crews were exceptional. I mean, Olympic gold medal and slightly below standard, but just shows just how fit and strong they really were to displace very good heavyweight crews in the final.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, both of those crews. I suppose the men's double of Meyer and Hayward have not competed at World Championship level yet, but they've been pretty close to it. Decent under 23s, and Matt Hayward was obviously competing at the Olympic qualifying regatta as well, so he's right up there. And similarly, Jess Layden, Georgie Brayshaw, and the Stoner have competed at a really high level. Jess has obviously got World Championship experience there, so they're right up there. But then those are Olympic finalist lightweight doubles, and that shows both of the Irish double in the men's event and Craig and Grant in the women's event that a really good lightweight crew will beat a very good heavyweight crew, I suppose. And it also just shows Henley's just a bit different, isn't it? And when you throw in all those other variables as well, you're not asking them to row in a straight line with 4 other crews either side of them. There's some more there, and maybe that lightweight nous counts a little bit extra over the Henley course.
But then I think what made it even more unusual was the conditions, because in a headwind you would then favour the heavyweight crew. Again, you'd think that their power, their strength would perhaps be an advantage in those conditions, but we saw those 2 lightweight crews winning in really in a holding headwind and big headwind conditions. So it absolutely shows the quality of the lightweight rowing and the lightweight rowing fields. We watched them in the Olympics, and you see the women's double race, the girls missed out on a medal by 0.01, as we famously know, and that it is such tight racing, and I think that tight racing, that competitive tension, makes these lightweights crews absolutely extraordinary.
Yeah, 100%. And maybe staying on the theme of sculling, one of the most beautiful moments I thought from the regatta yesterday was Lola Anderson's post-race interview, where she dedicated her win to her late father, and she obviously defeated Lauren Henry in the final, but it came right down to the wire. I think I was calling it at halfway, saying this race is over, it's done, Lauren's 3 lengths up, and Sarah, I think you were in the commentary box at the time saying no, there's still got lots to do, still a lot of the course to go, and it turned out it was only about a quarter length in it.
Yeah, it was like Lauren was listening to me, wasn't it? And what I observed earlier in the week, and actually watching her in 2K regattas on 6-lane courses earlier in the year, was she absolutely does have that ability to change the boat speed. I didn't have such intelligence about Lola, but watching how she was sculling, I felt she had front-loaded that boat. And it's that moment, isn't it, when you're on the side-by-side racing, that you try and break the cord or the string as the front boat and perhaps don't relax enough and recover. And I just wondered whether we would see a fantastic finish, and I think 3 feet the judges gave it in the end.
Yeah, it was an amazing race, absolutely amazing, and I think the closest verdict yesterday from finals day. Shifting over then to the intermediate events, and we had Brooks again taking the ladies and the visitors title. Now I would probably hazard a guess that the ladies' final, in inverted commas, was on the Saturday, Brooks Leander, and probably the final of the visitors again was Brooks Leander on the Sunday. So a bit of a rivalry forming there, and amazing to see our top university facing up against one of the key development programs for the senior squad in Great Britain, Camilla. How do Leander now go about trying to displace Brooks at the top end of that pile?
Yeah, do you know what? It's really interesting. I was talking to Freddie Davidson yesterday, who's come into that Oxford Brooks mix off the back of his time at Cambridge University, and just saying how amazing the squad atmosphere is at Oxford Brooks at the moment, how dedicated they all are to the sort of one goal of making that step between university and the senior team. And they've got a lot of like-minded guys, and that intermediate step at the regatta, when you look at the events like the ladies and the visitors, they did an incredible job across the board of holding Leander at bay, who historically in the past, you look down the record books and it's Leander in years gone by, and Oxford Brooks are snatching that off them now. I think that Leander on the women's side, and we'll come on to the women's events in just a moment, have very effectively kind of dominated every sweep event that they could. I think the men will be looking at that and going, we need to get back on the balance, do some good recruitment, because I think that's exactly what Brooks have done, is they've recruited athletes that are on that path, and to step back into that process.
I suppose the other thing that Leander have done already is recruited a new coach. So Mark Banks stepped down earlier in the year, and Matt Beachy stepped up. So I guess maybe step one of that has already happened.
100%. And Martin, maybe if I come to you now and look at some of the women's eights events, perhaps the Ireland and the Wargrave. You said at the beginning of this recording that you were most pleased and most excited to have seen those events debuting down the track. What was your feeling? We know obviously Leander won the Wargrave, and I think the Ireland went to Oxford Brooks. How did you feel watching those events unfold?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it's a little bit of a shame that the Ireland came in with the regatta being at a time that didn't favour the students, because neither the Ireland nor the Temple were at their strongest this year. 9 crews entered in the Ireland, and 3 of those were B boats, and obviously there was the issue with Oxford Brooks racing their B boat and being reprimanded by the stewards afterwards. So, and that I guess that did affected the racing in the run up to it. But Brooks and UL have been the 2 class crews of the year, and one Brooks UL at Bucks, and it was a great race as well, wasn't it? UL getting out there, getting probably half a length to a length, and Brooks just reeling them through. But it wasn't over even then. There was a real battle to the line, and it just sort of it shows the quality of student women's eights, and it's a really great addition to the programme straight away. And it's been good to watch the Wargrave throughout. I thought the Tideway Scullers race, when was that? Was that Thursday? Was a cracker, and then ending showing two really strong crews in Leander and Thames. So really great that those numbers of women are getting into the regatta and showing the standard of racing available.
I also think, Martin, we talk about at the moment in the island, it wasn't a very favourable time for students. It's their break between years, or they're graduating. But we will see it back next year when they've had a full academic year of training, and also encompassing all the new events. I think build it and they will come is what I've always loved about the likes of like the Diamond Jubilee that we'll talk about later. In its 10 years, you look back to the entries from 2012 in its first year, and it is just a shadow of what that is now, and back then it was a lot of B crews of bigger school programs, and now the diversity that you get between the clubs and the schools, and that's what I'd love to see reflected in these new events like the Island and the Wargrave. Is now that event is there, people will see that and put things together, and it will take time to develop, but my word, it will develop, and I'm sure we'll see it become just as competitive as the new events from 10 years ago. So yeah, I'm really excited to see them grow.
And
I think you've got, sorry Tom, I think you've got the quality there at the top. straight away, and if you've got the quality there at the top, the rest of the tree grows, doesn't it? Yeah.
I think the other new event that it makes sense to zero in on, and one that I was particularly pleased to watch the result for, was the junior women's eights, and watch Headington win a Henley Royal Regatta title. Now, I can't tell you if it's the first time in their history, but I can tell you it's the first time in recent history, because they've been trying to win a Diamond Jubilee race, and they haven't yet managed it. But first year they win the eights, and that was a really special moment, I think, Camilla, for Ryan Domain and his crew and the programme he's put together.
Yeah, gosh, I mean, when I was racing as a junior 11 years ago now, Headington were just the dominant force in the eights, both at national schools, at the school's head, at Henley Women's. You look at those events and they just dominated. And I have never seen anything more deserved, really, than for them to finally get their name on a Henley Royal Regatta trophy. Because, like you say, I think having to shift that unit, that eight, sweep to sculling, to move, bite it down into a quad, which is halfway through the season. They have to switch from national schools to then prepare for Henley Royal in that one event that was available to them. They just kept getting caught out by people who had prioritised the quad every year. And so, yeah, the fact that they could use that channel to put their eight finally into the regatta for them to win. But I must say that, it wasn't easy for them. There was a lot of other crews that came out of the sidelines, like Surbiton. How awesome was it to see a crew from Surbiton High School, eight girls overcoming national schools champions LEH on the Friday, and that was an absolutely that was Shrewsbury, wasn't it? But I mean, Surbiton, what a crew.
Yeah, and Surbiton largely comprised of J16s actually, so that's a long runway of success for them that they've yet to take a trip down. I think the other, staying with eights at the moment, the Temple Challenge Cup was obviously a very interesting one to watch unfold throughout the week, and I imagine, Sarah, from the steward's perspective, as the custodians and the people who try and get the regatta moving at all the right times, having those swimmers come out and meet the Nearhouse crew presented its own set of unique challenges.
Well, I think if any of us have watched the Dutch win at any regatta, that's not any surprise that they had a few of their fans who wanted to come and join it. Of course, one of the things we saw at this regatta was how hard the athletes were pushing and the physiological cost that the course was having on them. So first and foremost, of course, we're worried about the safety of the athletes. And at a moment like that, where you've seen the guys in this case go down the course, we really want to be able to keeping our eyes on them. We were having to give medical support to quite a lot of athletes at the end, so it's definitely something I guess we're not encouraging. We need to be able to get the safety boats to the athletes if that's required.
The other thing I love about Dutch victories is the singing when they get their trophy. To see Neurhouse on the Temple when they picked up the cup, it was that tuneful sort of university song, and they all have one, don't they? All the Dutch universities have a song that they sing if they win, and that was another lovely little tradition that you get with all the crews from the Netherlands.
Yeah, it was amazing to watch them take their victory. And I said before the regatta, the Dutch don't come over, especially in a year disrupted by COVID, unless they're very fast, and that proved to be the case. On maybe the other student event that we haven't touched on, the Prince Albert, Martin, that was a particularly interesting one because Brooks, I think, were my pre-regatta favourites, and they were dumped out on the Saturday by UL. And I watched UL in the final, and they never really came down off their first 20 strokes at pace. They were at 40 at the barrier, and they just essentially got out to a length and a half and just sat there. It was pretty amazing, to be honest.
Yeah, that Hampton Stern pair, wasn't it? Tom Cross, Tom Worthington. I watched that Saturday morning race quite closely, and that for me was probably the final of the PA. UL getting half a length probably at the end of the island to Oxford Brooks, and then Brooks storming back, and UL having another gear. I thought that was an outstanding race. It's a shame it was at 9:30 on a Saturday morning, but then something's got to be at 9:30 on a Saturday morning. That's a great UL crew, and it's great that that those universities can find an event. They've got 4 guys, and they've obviously prioritised that, and got a deserved victory there.
And maybe Martin, if I stick with you and the club events, obviously the Wyfold, the Brit, and the Thames and the Wyfold won by Thames, so that's double honours for them at this year's Henley Royal Regatta. They've gone from not being able to win a Henley title to save their lives to winning everything in sight.
Yeah, over a period of time. I know it all sort of started with Ben Lewis arriving there in 2013. Obviously, he's not there now. Xander Smilder has taken that on. But I think that the sort of the key bit for Ben when he was there was that every part of the club had an equal kind of importance. So it was as important that the fourth 8 do well as that the first 8 do well, and that shows, and obviously that's sort of the Brooks mentality as well. But that shows, a really good program means that you're getting crews that are successful at all sorts of levels. So yeah, Thames really the strongest of those club programs at the moment. Molesey coming back from having had quite a lot going on there. Molesey coming back and getting into finals as well. So that was they're going to be challenging further, I think, over the next few years.
And Camilla, maybe if I come to you just to touch on the Brit, and the reason I want to touch on the Brit, the Germans from Frankfurt winning that race, and wonderful to see them coming over, supporting the regatta and taking home some silverware. But I think actually the story of that event was the schoolboys who they came up against in the final from Hinksey Sculling School, who had a struggle to even get to the regatta because of the challenges they faced over the last 18 months. So amazing to see 5 schoolboys, including the Cox, sitting now on the start line and taking it to the Germans.
Yeah, and do you know what? Following the Hinksey story throughout the regatta, they weren't just in the Brit. We talked about the fact that they had a quad entered, they had another 4 entered. They had such depth across the regatta, not just in the Brit, but for them to have that crew in the final on Sunday, it was really special. And ultimately they came up against a more stronger, more seasoned international crew from Frankfurt. But yeah, I think that that was my highlight, seeing that crew from Oxfordshire come up against, big names and knock them out. They were coming up against really big, London Rowing Club A, and to knock them out on the Saturday, that's a huge scalp to take in something like the Brit. And against these huge clubs from the Tideway, they must be so proud, and I'm sure we will see them back. Like you say, they're just schoolboys, and they've got so many years ahead of them, and I really do hope we see them back, whether that be in the Brit again or in another event, whether they go coxless, who knows. But yeah, that was really good to see.
So this is the second time in 3 years we've had a junior crew in the final of the Brit. There's that Molesey crew that made the Brit final in 2018, lost to Thames. From that crew, two of that crew were in the Molesey boat that was in the Ladies Plate 8. The Cockle was in the Oxford Brooks Ladies Plate boat, and Cam Sperling was in the Prince Albert boat. So yeah, that's the kind of places that those guys might be in 2 years' time.
It's interesting, isn't it, the transition that people have made in those 2 years, and they are certainly talented athletes. They've got an energy to that club. I met them at Nat Schools and British Rowing Juniors as well. There's an energy and an intent, and it's great to see them as part of the rowing family.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting to watch juniors competing at club level, making that step up. I remember Hinksey coming down the track at the national schools in their 8 and thinking, they're really quick, and not being used to seeing a really, really competitive, fast Hinksey 8. So kudos to those guys, and be very interesting to watch their rowing career unfold. So maybe segueing into the junior events, it provides a nice bridge. It was Eton who retained the Princess Elizabeth Challenge Cup. I think most people expected that pre-regatta. They looked bigger, they looked a bit stronger than their opposition. But some great racing in the lead up to the final, particularly Sarah watching the American national champion St. Joe's match up against St. Paul's on the Friday.
Yeah, I'd umpired St. Joe's the day before, and they had really struggled a bit actually in tricky conditions in the course to get their boat up and straight, but they looked fast and they had a really fast start. So I was expecting St Paul's to struggle actually, and it was great to see the technical excellence that you always see under Bobby Thatcher's crews win over in that point. And I was sitting just on the committee lawn. I've just finished a race, and it was the St Joe's boys came into the floating stand at the final and watched the final, and you could see there was a real humility about them, about seeing, you know, well, hopefully seeing what they would have loved to have been in. I'm sure they wanted to be in that race, but also sort of looking, you could see them leaning on, thinking, okay, what else do we need to go faster? And I really love that about this regatta. We're talking about both, you know, the inspiration and the perspiration it takes to become an elite performer.
Yeah, it was a shame not to see them advance, I think, but you're completely right. They are very humble guys. I met John Fife in the week, who's their coach, and was totally, gracious to St Paul's in victory. So I think the other thing I would love to talk about is obviously the two sculling events for juniors. Let's start with the Forley. Now we had Tideway scullers coming out on top, which surprised me because I didn't see that necessarily coming at all. Although they were champions at the National Schools Regatta, I felt that Windsor boys and potentially Leander had gone past them since then. So that was remarkable, Camilla, to see them pick up speed that they looked like they'd almost lost post National Schools and finish up on top.
Yeah, and I think, some of the names you've mentioned there, Windsor Boys, Leander, Clare's Court, who have been in recent years, the guys we're used to seeing in the final, and Tideway Scullers have hit this year hard. And actually, I know for them on the senior side, it's been quite a disappointing regatta for Scullers, especially on the men's side. They had a lot of crews knocked out Friday, Saturday, and the Forley crew was a really important crew that they had all the support of the club behind, and what a victory for them. I must also say with the Forley, watching the race between Leander and Windsor Boys on the Saturday was one of my highlights of the regatta. I know the Forley always provides great racing, and those two crews have come up against each other time and time again, but it was bow ball for bow ball, and then one crew would get like a couple of centimetres up and the other crew would then match them the whole way down the track, and it was that kind of race that set it up for a great final. And it was stunning to watch.
It's worth saying that this event is probably most affected by the scheduling of the decision not to send a Great Britain squad to Junior Worlds. Because we were at GB Junior Trials in the summer half term, and most of those Tideway Scullers, Windsor Boys, Leander guys were right up at the top of trials. And then obviously the announcement, and there was announcement on the that there wasn't going to be a team, and the coaches were saying, well, we hope that the top athletes will still be training and find motivation going forward. And one of the replies on the WhatsApp group was from Chris Williams, the Tideway Scullers coach, and he said, we're still training. And there was a screen grab of Gabriel Obholz's 5:49 2K score. But that event could have been very different had a GB squad gone to Junior World. So it was great to see that. Mark Wilkinson and that Windsor Boys programme, Henley tends to be the focus for them, and in years gone by there has been they've been less worried about national schools because Henley has been the aim. So you did wonder, especially seeing that Brit Champs result, that whether they'd just got it right again. But Scullers got there.
And Martin, you make a good point about the timing. When we were looking to change the date of Henley Royal Regatta way back when in March, because we just got the roadmap, and it really did feel that no earlier than the 21st of June was too risky to have the regatta if we were planning to have it at Henley. We phoned, so the committee, we split up all our clubs and schools, and we phoned each and every coach to have a conversation about the impact if we had it in August when we were having it. And of course, you won't be surprised the World Juniors was heavily on the conversation, and I think we were expecting that we'd lose some of those top athletes to the event. What was good, I hope, for the athletes was when they did get that huge disappointment, I'm sure, to learn that they weren't able to represent their country, they could then come and represent their club or their school and have something to aim for. But it wasn't without some consideration that we were planning to, when we were planning to change the date, and we got two very, very clear messages. It was interesting. The clubs were very relaxed about an August date. They could see that was quite easy. The schools could see the challenges, and the World Juniors were going to impact it. And people wanted us, if we could, to run an event at Henley, not Dorney, just to be able to give that special feel of a Henley Royal Regatta, that two-lane racing and everything that we've been talking about.
I think now we're back in things starting to feel like they're returning to normal. Henley fitted in very nicely, and it's easy to forget that we're only sort of a month or so away from all sorts of restrictions. And it's sort of the planning and everything else that went in mustn't be underestimated. You got there at the right time, just in time.
Yeah, it was a real pleasure to be a part of, and maybe looking at the Forley, which was close, tight racing. The Diamond Jubilee was perhaps not the opposite, but the story of one crew just dominating everyone. They've come up against all season Shiplake College, who have won. I don't think that they'd been defeated in open combat this year. A remarkable crew. Dan Safdari's done an amazing job. He obviously had Shiplake be in the Diamond Jubilee qualifying as well. So 8 young athletes who were just an absolute, I suppose, great ambassadors for their school and great ambassadors for junior women's sculling. So Martin, maybe if I come to you, I think what I've loved the most about the Diamond Jubilee is the effect it's had on junior women's sculling in this country at international level. And I think, hopefully the junior women's eights will have the same effect, but fantastic to watch Shiplake basically dominate that event all week.
Yeah, I mean, in 2013, 2012 was the first Diamond Jubilee at Henley. I don't think it was called it that year. It was named it the next year. But in 2013, Jess Layden was I think the only female sculler who went to Junior Worlds that year. Whereas we're almost 10 years later, and we send a solid squad each time to Junior Worlds. So that shows the effect that Diamond Jubilee and having that event there to aim for has had on everything else. I think also particularly seeing the names in some of the Leander crews this week, and sort of spotting junior trialists and Junior Worlds people over the last 10 years just shows they've all come through that event. So these two quads can look forward to that in future.
No, I was going to say winner of the singles, Lola Anderson. She's a Surbiton girl that raced 10 years ago through that junior system that we're describing, went to the Junior Worlds and has moved through, given that pathway, and winning the final of the Princess Royal. I mean, can you look at that as a timeline and just go, that is a direct causation of that? I think you can partially. It's amazing to see.
And I think significantly this year, 24 boats in the main draw for this event, parity with the Forley. So both of those 24 crews that have that opportunity to compete, and that decision was made because of the quality that we have seen develop through these programs. It's exciting, and it's interesting. I umpired that final, and Marlow did what they could, didn't they? They went out and they got themselves ahead of the Shiplake crew, and then it was that point where you thought, the Shiplake, the technical prowess of these women at the moment is just amazing. You can see the efficiency, and Marlow weren't able to sit with their pace, but they were certainly challenged in that final.
Yeah, it was a remarkable race. Marlow doing what so many people at Henley try and do and break the race early, but Shiplake's quality and technical proficiency paid dividends in the end. But I think that's everything from us at the Debrief. I think we've covered most of the events, the stories, the narratives, the subplots that coursed through the regatta, and it's 5 days. We'll be back in 2022. Not a year to go, less than a year. Very exciting.
1.5 months, Tom. We're counting down.
Already looking forward to a 6-day regatta in 2022, where hopefully Martin doesn't book a holiday over the top of it.
As long as it's at the normal time, that's not a possibility.
Yeah. Absolutely. So it's been a fantastic regatta. Wonderful to have it back. I think that was the overwhelming sense from spectators, competitors alike, that it was just great to have a regatta in Henley with a bit of sunshine, which was, a blessing as well, given the weather we've had. But thank you, Martin. Thank you, Camilla. Thank you, Sarah, for coming on this debrief. It's been a pleasure talking through the regatta with you, and we'll see you all next time on the debrief.